What is up, everybody? Welcome to Class HorrorCast again. I am one of your hosts, Aran, aka the horniest boy in horror. Horniest man in horror actually sounds better. And yeah, we have a very, very special deep dive today. And I'm joined by usually Tom, but it looks like I'm joined by some weird dancing Jason.
You can't really play the character that well because he is silent. He is a silent boy. He is my boy. So I love my boy Jason. So welcome everybody. I'm super excited for this. This is definitely my jam. I have all my horror memorabilia out, some of it. I got my little Jason here, little boy Jason. And I would love I think it's the one from part 3. I don't have his mask or anything. Little
Cool.
like
I like his face.
I would love like a little thing of the little boy Jason. It'd be fun. It's just funny to have it.
Is that something that you can even get?
I want the Tommy Jarvis mask when he's bald. Yes, welcome everybody back to the show. Welcome to ClassHorrorCast. I am one of your hosts, along with Aran, the horniest boy in horror. I am Tomcat, aka Tom Thompson, the Reptilian. You can find my music on music platforms. And get ready for this deep dive that I'm very stoked about. Lock your cabin doors, zip up your tents, flush your drugs, take your dick out of that vagina, pull up those panties, hide those titties, grab your car keys, and hope that it starts, because he could be anywhere. He could be anywhere. Anywhere. Yes, he could be anywhere. I think I hear him coming now. It's very silent, though.
Now, coming as in...
I don't think anybody wants to have sexual relationships with Jason.
Why?
I don't think, maybe not, because like the whole idea that, women like serial killers. Yeah, right there. The one of the reasons women like serial killers, the idea of why they're like interested or they fancy them, or eventually we'll be talking about this on Strange Fruit podcast, like the women who love serial killers, is because it's the idea that this man will kill for me. That he's got that like animal instincts,
I was always fascinated by that, though. It's such a bizarre thing.
We'll talk about it. I'll get you on for that episode, and we'll do that. So I'm super excited for this one. It's going to be awesome. I got a lot to say, and let's get her going. So let me
for if you haven't figured out at this point, which you probably have if you've listened to this anywhere, because you will have seen the title, but we are covering in this part the first 4 movies in the Friday the 13th franchise. So we will have part 1, 2, part 3 in 3D, and then the final chapter, that was clearly never going to be the final chapter. But yeah, that's what we're covering in this one, and we will have a part 2 where we will cover the rest of the franchise as well.
But we have we'll have a little thing for all you guys for on the Patreon. We're not going to cover a specific movie, but this is eventually going to lead us into Freddy versus Jason, Jason X, because those are ones we're not going to cover. And we'll leave our little sneak peek into something that we're going to do for the Patreon until next time. It is almost it's noon. It's noon, so it's fine. I made a pina colada.
Oh, nice.
I like pina coladas and cutting out your brains.
That was pretty good.
It could have been better. So I made a pina colada because I got one at the we went out for dinner yesterday, and I got one. I ate way too much food and I could barely drink it. So Chelsea was helping me drink it, and I was like, you know what, whatever, I'm gonna do that tomorrow. I feel like this is a fun deep dive to have like a fun drink on, so it's pretty good. I love it.
And I am 3 shots of rum. Plain old green tea and lemon.
Well, yeah, Aran has to drive after this, but for everybody listening, if you fancy having a drink, you're hanging out, you're watching the video, because we always try to push people to watch it on Rumble or YouTube, kind of join us along on this journey, especially with the deep dives. We're going to be showing images and all that type of fun stuff. So if you hear this, I want you to take a drink, smoke a joint, or whatever you do. If you're really into heroin, I guess bang some heroin. Just kidding. but if you hear this, make sure to take a drink, because we'll have a little drinking game for this one.
It's a good thing I don't have that button right now, because I would probably just spam that.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited for this. I wrote my thoughts about every movie, and then we're gonna talk about all the nitty gritty details. So, do you want to bring us into the folds of part one?
Yep. So we have Friday the 13th, part one, or just Friday the 13th, directed by Sean S. Cunningham, who most people probably will know. Written by Victor Miller, released on May 9th, 1980. A simplified plot summary: camp counselors are stalked and murdered by an unknown assailant while trying to reopen a summer camp, which was the site of a child's drowning. Some key characters in this one: we have Alice Hardy, played by Adrienne King, and Pamela Voorhees, played by Betsy Palmer.
She does a great job.
Some notable facts: this was, I suppose, our introduction to Camp Crystal Lake. And yeah, we get the killer gets revealed at the end. It's kind of weird. We'll leave it till we, I guess, progress to that part. But it's not what you'd think if you haven't seen the movie.
Yeah, well, exactly, and that's it's funny because I can't remember. I think that I watched like I don't know. The first one I watched was maybe like part 3 or 6 or something like that, where I was aware of who Jason was. You know, you see those nostalgic covers that would really like drew me into watching these movies was a lot of the covers, and it was Taboo, and he's probably one of the most iconic characters. You know, the silent killer, almost like a shark, right? Where he's silent and he kind of stalks, and then he comes after his prey. And it's interesting because even like sorry everybody, but string time, that sound, it's so funny how it's like already instantly in the film in the first one, that like it's not something that comes later. That's something that's kind of always been there. And like a lot of original slasher films, it was it's like first person, right? The killer's view camera shot, which we saw that a lot in the 70s and 80s when they first started creating what we now know as like a slasher film.
The killer's POV.
Yeah, exactly. Which it definitely started within the slasher film franchises of kind of having that angle, and it's pretty interesting. The movie was filmed at Camp No Boo Sco, and that's a weird thing, in New Jersey, and the camp is still in operation. Has a wall of Friday 13th memorabilia to honor the movie that was set there. That's pretty fun.
That'd be cool to visit.
I would love to go there.
Mm.
No Boo Sco. That's very weird.
It'd be even like better for me because obviously coming from here, we didn't really have like summer camp and stuff like the same way you guys would. Like,
yeah.
Our idea of like a summer camp here would be like you would go somewhere for like the day and then you would go back home again and then you would go the next day.
Yeah, I don't know if I liked it very much when I went.
Like going to school. Yeah, and maybe I just like the idea more of like being like, ooh, you go to like a summer camp and you stay in like a cabin and it's all spooky.
I did that. I did the Tim Hortons camp once, I think, when I was a kid. That one was okay because I was with my buddies. I think it was like a school thing. But I went to the YMCA. YMCA. That yeah, that that's like, never mind. That old chestnut. But that camp, I just remember going. And I've a few embarrassing moments. Like an older kid was listening to Snoop Dogg, and I was like, "What is it, Snoop Doop Doop Doop?" And I was like, I didn't know any of the music, so I'm like, "It's 7 or 8." And I remember they made fun of me very much, and I was like just a weird kid. And I just remember like it's embarrassing moments of being at camp and being like on your own, where you kind of have to make friends and you don't really know anybody, and it's kind of just awkward and weird. You're a young kid, and you know, do dumb stuff, and then you get made fun of and called sausage fingers and stuff. It's fun times.
It's kind of a strange like idea in one sense that like you said, like if you don't go with like maybe a little group or like a friend from school or from like home or somewhere like that, it can be quite a like weird experience as a kid. And I don't think it's as I know the idea is probably to be like, oh, you know, you put yourself out there a bit and like you meet new friends and new people and it like helps you blossom. But it's like kind of does the opposite, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, I know. And it's for parents to get away from the kids probably. But I knew a lot of kids that went to the Christian summer camps, and they were getting
nice.
They were doing some dirty things. I heard some stories from my buddies that went to Christian summer camp, and they were having all sorts of first time you do this or that, it's a finger popping, all that type of fun stuff.
Ooh.
It's funny because it kind of starts off right in this movie where it's just right into kind of the horny teenager camp counselor vibe, like naughty naughty, don't do this. And that's why it's jokingly where I said, like, just take your penis out of the vag, right? Because realistically, that's what gets you killed. And if you listen to the ClassHorrorCast rap intro, eventually I think I'm gonna make a whole song. I've told people this. We've talked about this. I would love to do like a whole theme about Friday the 13th, like a song that's just based on the Friday the 13th movies, and maybe try to do some horror movie rap just for fun, just for my own fun. I actually finished the Strange Brew podcast intro, did a whole song to it, finally. So people asked for it, so I did it. Haven't recorded it yet, but I think it would be interesting because it's this idea, right, of coming from this point of view of like you got to not do drugs, not have sex, because that ultimately leads to your death because you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing, especially at that age, because they're supposed to be like teenagers, right? Like, 15, 16, 17 type of thing. And then obviously Jason, well, at the beginning, his mother seeks to get revenge, right? Essentially for what happened. And then it's like, these people didn't even do anything though. It was the other, you know what I mean? You're not even getting revenge on the proper people because it was like years beforehand.
Do you know what? Like, as well, a lot of people seem to knock the whole premise and stuff, and I actually don't hate it, to be
No, I don't
honest.
hate it either.
And I
I
like
like it.
I was actually kind of shocked by like how many people online, and like this is not I don't really want to talk about like negative stuff about the movies or anything,
No.
but like I was like a little bit shocked by how many people were like, oh, I don't really like the like twist, and it's dumb and it doesn't make sense. And it's like it makes all the sense
Yeah, it does.
in my head.
I think that it's done fairly well too. And I think what's her name?
Betsy Palmer.
Betsy Palmer does a good job at just being this psychotic mother. And according to some of the people that created the film, it was like the mother that they always wanted. I can't remember who said that, the director or writer or something, but essentially that it was like the mother that you always wanted, that would kill for you and protect you in a lot of ways, right? And it's just, look at the outfits. That's something I always took from it, is like just it's just funny how just the outfits are set up and like just very 80s vibe. And it kind of points out to the camp counselors, who, like, when they come in for the first kill, that they're obviously aware of like the naughty behavior of the camp counselors not really attending to the kids. And it's funny because there's not, in a lot of the movies, there's not really kids until we get, can't remember which one it is, maybe the fifth or sixth one. I think it's maybe the fifth one, but the majority of the first three films, really, it just shows the camp counselors, I think, before the kids even arrive.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is an interesting thing.
Do you know what? There's a lot of things as well that, like, upon watching it again, I didn't realize at the time, like the amount of like implied violence and stuff.
Yeah.
Where obviously I know, look, there's some great kills throughout the entire franchise, but like there's other times where we don't really see the kill; it's more implied. But still, I don't know. I have like vivid memories of being shocked by it, even though we didn't actually see like the physical action.
Well, there's some decent kills, the what's his name, Kevin Bacon, crazy how he looks so young when he gets like the spear thing through the throat on the bed. Great kill scene. It's classic. This movie is very much classic. And you have like obviously the formation of like kind of the Scream Queen idea and stuff like that. And this movie will always be nostalgic. The first one, I have the poster over there, just a classic. The original, like the first poster of just the kind of what's that called, the kind of shadow of the person holding the knife, and then you see the scared camp counselors. And I feel like, I don't know if this is true, but I feel like the poster was probably designed first before they casted some of the people in the film. So I'm looking at the poster now, and it's just a cool poster. Like the idea of, oh, you're alone in the woods, by a cabin, and there's this forest. Do you have the original poster?
Oh, on this or
Yeah. In this.
It's somewhere. No, actually, I don't know if I do.
Well, pull it. Share my screen.
I don't think I have the original poster.
Just classic, just a
Yeah,
classic. It's
yeah.
classics, and
That's one
everybody
of those
seems
that
to
I
know that.
feel like this, like you just know of it, even if you've
Yeah,
never
even if
seen
you've never
it.
seen the movie, right? A lot of people know what this is. This is funny. Jason, it's like Jaws.
Do you know what?
Very
And he gets
classic.
referenced a lot of times like that, where when they were making this movie, people who were involved were like, think of Jason like the Jaws character.
Yeah, where he's kind of hunting you down. Pretty awesome though. Just a cool, it's just a nostalgic poster, right?
Mhm.
You can take her down now. Yeah,
Um,
it's interesting. Let's get into this, some of the box office and stuff, and if you want.
there's now this right. This is kind of a wild sort of a quote thing, but it just kind of shows you like some of the people who were working on this stuff and like the thought process they had. So I've been reading that Camp Crystal Lake Memories book or whatever it is
Yeah,
for like some research, and there's a quote in it from George Mansour, I think it is. He was working for Hallmark Releasing at the time, and so Sean Cunningham was shopping around a print of a movie he made called Together,
yeah,
and this is wild, but this is how he sold it to Hallmark. This kind of shows you, I suppose, the mind of like Sean Cunningham and how forward thinking he was in a way. Because this kind of, I suppose, ties into the idea that he put an ad in the paper and it said like Friday the 13th, the scariest movie you will ever see. And he literally had no plot, no idea what it was going to be about, like nothing other than the fact that he made this like poster.
yeah, yeah.
And but another movie he had made anyway. I just thought this was really bizarre. Called Together, and it had Marilyn Chambers in it. And there's a sequence in it where there's a quote from him, a good-looking black man, where she takes a yellow flower and runs it along his soft penis, and it becomes erect. And Cunningham said, "There is a this was in a meeting with Hallmark. There is a big group of people out there who have never seen a big black cock. We can surely execute this." And Hallmark bought the movie for $10,000 flat.
Hallmark, Hallmark. The like now they make those cheesy
Yep,
romance movies for chicks that are desperate and bored and
yep.
don't really have a husband or a life or a man, and so
And
they want to fantasize about
how he
they can
sold it to him,
fantasize about a big black cock.
that's how he sold it to him apparently. Quote, he said, "There is a big group of people out there who have never seen a big black cock, and we can exploit this."
So did he want to put like maybe we should make Jason black and then he fucks the counselors instead?
Fucking just, I
That's
don't know.
so fucking weird.
Yeah, it's like such a bizarre.
So everybody, just to bring this up, composer pina colada, penis colada.
That's what I always think of every time you say it.
Composer Henry Fredney came up with the classic vocals attached to the score. It's his voice as well, which is kind of cool. And I remember that I think they changed it eventually, but I remember my mom, like, because I was super interested in this. My mom was into horror for a time, and she's definitely changed over the years. But when she was younger, like she remembers going to see Friday the 13th in the theaters originally, like when this first came out, and scared all of her friends. She's in Toronto in the 80s, such a time to be alive. And she was telling me that it used to say Jason, kill, kill, kill. Jason kill, which I think eventually comes later on that they do add some of that in. I don't know which movie it is, but I always thought that it was something like that, but it's actually just like Kiki ma, you know.
Yeah, weird. I've heard so many different like versions of that
I
story
know.
about what that is.
I know. Tom Savini was one of the first crew members on board for the film because the producers idolized his special makeup effects in Dawn of the Dead. And didn't he later go on to play? No, did he? No, he never played Jason. That was almost thought he did for a second. I was like, never mind. Yeah, pretty crazy. Tom Savini's a great makeup
Yeah,
artist.
well, especially when you think of the time period. Like,
I'm thinking Kane Hodder.
I wish we could go back to like,
Practical effects.
yeah, just like,
Yeah, that I wanted to watch that new maybe that new Godzilla movie where like big Godzilla and King Kong team up, and bro, it
Mhm.
looks like there's so much CGI.
yeah, like I seen it. It's okay, but it is
Okay.
very like no, the CGI isn't terrible,
Yeah.
but like I don't know, I can't really get down with them films anymore. I'm like,
I know. I know it's also a very like classic iconic thing, especially to do with this original film, is when the it breaks the screen with the Friday 13th you know, that white writing. That's so classic of when it kind of breaks the screen. It's like Friday 13th and the music starts. Very classic, iconic thing that will forever stick with horror fans because I feel like it's one of the first movies to really do that. And then especially when we get to the part 3 with 3D and shit, it's
I think that
good.
was made by they made this wooden block, and then they had wax across the front, which had like the logo Friday the 13th, and they actually blew it up.
That's cool. I like
Yeah,
that.
I thought that was kind of
I dig
unique.
it.
It was so interesting reading the book as well because, like they talk about the initial ideas that were thrown around, and there was like this whole thing of like, okay, are we gonna make this whole thing real life, or are we gonna make all the threats like kind of imagined? Like, was it gonna be kind of like a fever dream sort of a movie?
Yeah.
There was ideas to have it all set in an apartment or in a fun house or an amusement park. At one point, they had the idea to set it in an island off the coast of Spain,
Weird.
which would have been so weird. Do you know what the first ever title for this movie was?
No.
Long Night at Camp Blood.
Oh yeah, because the original was supposed to be Camp Blood.
Mm,
You
Long
know,
Night at Camp Blood. I don't know if how I feel about that.
and it's so fine. Then you have like the archetype, like the typical archetype of bad omen, where that guy's like, "It's got a death curse," you know. It's that guy, that old dude shows up. He eventually gets slaughtered, but that's like such a iconic thing within horror movies of somebody warning the kids or the soon to become victims about what's like, you know, about the bad omen. Something's going on there. It's bad. You're gonna get murdered. Don't go that way. Wrong way. Don't do it. You know, and then it's just funny because they definitely have that within this movie of that old guy be like, "It's got a death curse." Classic.
What's his name again? Is it Ralph? No.
Probably something like that. It's got a death curse. Pretty
There's some
crazy,
cool
man.
this. Let's see.
Would you know what how the budget and how much it made?
Yes, we do. I have it here. Just bear with me for 1
Those
second.
for everybody who are listening, we're pulling up some of the behind the scenes makeup effects. It's pretty awesome.
There's Tom Savini doing his thing with his badass mustache.
Weird.
Kevin
A weird
Bacon.
head.
So apparently the budget was estimated to be somewhere around $550,000, and at the time, apparently that would have been seen as like super low budget. Don't know. It seems like a lot of money. Like it's $500,000 fucking dollars.
Yeah, I agree.
Opening weekend, it made 5.8 million, and the worldwide gross ended up being $39.9 million, which they saw as like this was like the best thing since sliced bread.
Fucking rolling in money, bro.
Yep.
There he is.
There's
There's
Crazy Ralph.
Yeah. It's got a death curse.
So weird. Like just how that's all like done. It's like so strange.
And it's so classic when they bring up the first like Camp Crystal Lake, like because this movie is one of the most nostalgic horror movies ever to exist, in my opinion. So, in almost more than Halloween. I'm not gonna lie, because I'm gonna say that I enjoy all the Friday 13th movies more than I enjoy all of the Halloween movies.
Yeah, I could see that.
In a whole context. Like there's some that are better than others, of course. Halloween, the first two are pretty great, and then the third one's not even like we'll eventually deep dive Halloween because I want to do these as I've told you, me and Aaron have talked about is doing the staple, the landmarks of horror, and then eventually we can branch off to some of the more obscure stuff. And I find it funny because there's a lot of like the Fruity Tooty head counselor. I put down nice shorts, buddy, because like it's like realistically back then it was like we were talking about this when we did the part 4 commentary. It's just the outfits and how a lot of the guys look they kind of look gay, right? They're like if Aaron wore these short jean shorts down the street with hiking up his socks and little shoes, and a little crop top, because there's a bunch of dudes that within these movies that have like crop tops, you would be like, everyone would be like whistling at you or be like, nice shorts. Quite, like they
quite a gross image.
Yeah. Just different time, different styles, the hair, the outfits. I feel like it was almost like a peak of civilization at some extent because people could afford it. Was just a difference. 80s was like the peak of at least the Western civilization of people being able to like work, make money, buy a house at a very young age, get married young. It's a lot different than what we see the world today.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy as well when you think about the idea of like making a movie back then in like the early 80s or late 70s or whatever. There was some stories I was seeing, like some of the actresses, they were given boots to wear, and like when they came back after doing like the costume fitting or whatever, they were like, yeah, those boots are like not my size.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, okay, they're not your size. Well, what we'll do is we'll get you to wear like 3 or 4 pairs of socks, and you can try and like stretch them out. And like after a couple of nights of shooting with these things, she was like, my feet are like, I can't, like, these are like 2 sizes too small. I
My
can't.
bunions.
Yeah. And they were like, because apparently like they were trying to be like super strict with like where money was spent.
Yeah, I agree.
So she was driven to wherever the closest town was. And she was told on the way there that she would only be allowed to buy boots if they could find ones that were on sale. Other than that, she would have to wear.
I have no circulation in my feet right now.
They were like, well, bitch, who cares? I see screenwriter Victor Miller actually said that when he wrote the movie, he had, which is kind of funny to hear now, but he had no background in horror, and Sean Cunningham made him watch Halloween. And when he seen that, he felt like all the first act of Halloween was full of like innocent kind of scares.
Yeah.
So because of that, I know this didn't make much sense to me, but because it had that, the scene with the snake.
Yeah.
That was added because of that somehow. And then I don't know how true it is or not, but supposedly that was a real snake.
That's interesting. It's so weird. It's interesting take and concept for this film because the first one, it isn't a monster, right? Technically, like Jason becomes throughout the series, it's someone that has the ability to pick up off the side of the road, like a serial killer. Like you see this within the film, like they look like everyday people, and you see this throughout the film where they're like, what are you doing? We're not doing anything. And it's a person. It's not like a monster. Cause there's one scene where the two counselors are getting down and dirty. And then somebody, like the point of view, the killer's view kind of like comes into play. And then like, we're not doing anything. Sorry. And then obviously they clue in that these people know the person, or, you know what I mean? So it's a lot different. This first take and concept of what it becomes later on.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of I think I don't want to say groundbreaking.
Yeah.
But definitely like within the horror genre, there's a lot of like firsts I think they'd done and things they tried that probably paved the way for, a lot of other movies maybe to
I agree. Well, it's kind of a Guess Who kind of movie, right? Like even with the kill scenes, it looks like a man's hand. And then obviously later on, you find out that it's like a mother seeking revenge. Pretty crazy. It's funny because Betsy Palmer said that if it was not for the fact that she was in desperate need for a new car, she would have never accepted the role of Pamela Voorhees. In fact, after reading the script, she called the movie a piece of shit. Over the years, however, Palmer did warm up to the film as it made her famous, then infamous, and made appearances at conventions and in documentaries to discuss it. And you see this because I have the DVD and I was watching it. I was trying to watch some of the panels that they would do for like a Comic-Con or like some of the expos. And she obviously now is very thankful, but at the time, at least she kind of grows into it, unlike Jennifer Aniston. Check out our Leprechaun deep dive where she just hates the role. And it's like, bitch, this gave you your first your first movie role. Nobody would really know you. You probably wouldn't get your role on Friends and all this other stuff. So like, you should be thankful of the opportunities that you were given and that it became some nostalgic thing, because it could have been a lot worse there, lady.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that actually about Betsy Palmer. And I think it like aligned perfectly because she I think the car that she needed or replacement car or whatever was like 10 grand, and they agreed to pay her $1,000 a day for a 10-day shoot. So she was like, oh, it worked out perfect. Something that I actually didn't know that I seen afterwards was so there was a movie critic called Gene Siskel, right? And at the time, like, this movie got absolutely ripped apart by movie critics. They absolutely tore it asunder. But he disliked this is so weird to me how you could like not like a movie so much that you would even bother to do this. He disliked the movie so much that he revealed the killer's true identity in like all of his articles, like in newspapers and magazines and stuff. He basically told everybody who the killer was to try and ruin the movie so you wouldn't go see it. He called Cunningham, and this is a quote, one of the most despicable creatures to infest the movie industry. He also, right, that wasn't good enough for him. So then he went on and he printed out Betsy Palmer's actual home address and urged people to send her letters and tell her how disgusting she was and how much they hated the movie and hated her and everything she was about.
He was doxing them.
And then here's the funny part then. I done a little bit more digging and I found out that he presented a show. I can't even remember the name of it. Sneak Peeks or something like that. He presented a show with Roger Ebert. Another person who I think is an absolute scumbag, but they devoted an entire like October episode of their show, which was like nationally syndicated, to bashing the movie. So the entire episode was just them being like, garbage, this is garbage, the script is garbage, the kills are garbage, the whole thing was all revolving around how much they disliked it.
What a piece of shit. Like, really, it's art. If people are going to pay the money for it, like, it's not you to judge or say what's good and what's not. That's why I hate the majority of critics are garbage people. And I truly believe this, because if you look at like even Rotten Tomatoes, and it'll be like, oh, like 8% or something like that. But then you actually read everyday people's reviews and they're like, I actually like this. I enjoyed this. I'll watch this again. And you start to see the real life aspect of what people actually think about things, because critics are just some fancy kid that went to like film school or some shit, or maybe not went to school at all. And they're just giving their opinions. Somehow they got into this realm of critiquing things. And who knows, maybe it's because they're lonely and depressed in their own life and they don't like their own life and they can't make something worth shit. So they like to critique other people's shit, you know?
Yeah, it's all, I always find it strange. Like, and look, I know I've like shit on things in the past, but I try now to be more like, you know, if I don't like something, I'll still try and acknowledge some good thing about it, or the fact that, like, you know, I have never made a movie. So, like, it's very hard for me to sit there and be like, oh, big piece of garbage. I can't understand how you can't make a good movie, because I have no idea the concept of like when hundreds of people get involved and everyone's pulling in a different direction, like how shit that must be.
Well, I know, and we've said this before, and the producers putting their own spin on things. And like I've said, I'm critical because I love horror movies, and I think that there's sometimes they're lacking stuff or the story gets thrown off. But at the same time, I don't have a movie, so for some of the people that have done this, even when we talked about the last broadcast, it's like, hey, I don't have a movie, but good for you guys. I don't necessarily think that it's great, but
Mhm.
at least you guys made something, and some people seem to like it,
Um, Another thing I found strange as well is like how I wouldn't say he disregards it, but like Cunningham seems to be quite impartial to like the movie now.
Yeah.
Like he's quoted in the book. He says, "Yeah, no, it's fine, but it's hardly a cure for cancer. And if it was released today, it probably wouldn't even be worth a look. Definitely not worth a second look."
So strange. And I think he's the problem with not wanting to release, because it's Victor Miller and him and Sean Cunningham that have the legal debates of how they want to release it. That's what stopped the game. And there's a lot of things within these movies now, because like I said on the commentary, that I played the game a lot. And when it first came out, it was fun. You had a lot of people that loved the franchise that were playing it, and it was just a fun time, nostalgic sets, and to kind of immerse you into that experience of being the killer and the camp counselors and being chased around the maps that you love from the movies that you love. Like, I really enjoyed it. And what stopped it was a lot of the lawsuits with Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller, which is very disappointing. It was actually 18th highest grossing film that year, facing stiff horror competition which is crazy. The Shining, Dress to Kill, The Fog, and Prom Night. And I think it succeeds all of them except for The Shining. Shining is a great film, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't now. I don't know if this is the case or not,
Do
but
you love Prom Night?
In the book, am I right in saying so? By the end of 1980, it ranked as the top grossing horror film of the year.
I'm sure that it did after it kind of got pushed out there, because man, everyone saw this movie. I don't know a person that doesn't know this movie.
Mm.
So
The other thing as
realistically,
well that I think gets pushed back on it, we don't really think about it that much because everyone talks about, oh, well, it was so successful, like financially, is the fact that like this was a B movie that had better results than like the so-called respectable, like major studio A pictures at the time.
yeah,
And I feel like that they really helped like kick the door open a little bit for, because this was seen as an exploitation film. And the
I'm
fact that
sure.
it made
Yeah,
like $40 million and it was outperforming, like the fancy studio movies must have been like for executives, they must have been like, for fuck's sake, like this piece of shit has really resonated with an audience.
yeah, I know. And it made it. It's one of the most nostalgic and well-known horror franchises ever to exist, right? It's so crazy because most of the locations and set were already there, and the crew only had to build bathroom sets. However, few realized that one of the toilets was actually working. So after a while, the other toilets had to be cleaned out. So people were taking shit in the fake toilets.
Gross.
That's pretty nasty, man. Which would be crazy because they said it in like a camp, and like we're saying when you brought up that one website that you can like go to some of where they film this stuff, and I think that's pretty awesome. Like, there's some pretty cool things about this. It's a very nostalgic film. I love it. The first one is definitely not my favorite, but it's one that I've gone back to many times. Like, Jason wasn't even mentioned by name until an hour and 16 minutes into the film.
What do you feel about like skipping to the end then? Like that jump scare. So I'm sure you definitely noticed, but that wasn't even in the original script. Like, and they only added that scene with him coming out of the water
Yeah, I
after
know.
they saw how shocked everybody was with the ending of Carrie.
Well, and maybe that's some of the point of why they did it, but when you find out that it's Jason's mom, well, even just the mom in general, it's a counselor that's seeking revenge. It is quite a twist, and I think she does do a good job, especially at some of the lines that she has.
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her. Don't let her get away, Mommy. Don't let her live.
Like, I think that's pretty nostalgic and pretty classic how she played this psychotic mother. And if you bring up that scene where she's like smiling with the knife, like she does, it's very like, she will always be nostalgic and an important archetype of the film of what makes Friday the 13th the Friday the 13th, right? Without her, Jason doesn't seek revenge and you know, it's a pretty awesome knife too. Not gonna lie. And it's just this film is classic, and that classic scene of him coming out of the water with the jump scare, and them wanting to add that in, and obviously Tom Savini putting the makeup to work. Of I wonder how that came up though. Like, you know, we want to add maybe for a jump scare at the end because of this, what happened with Carrie, and it did well, and people enjoyed that. It's fun for an audience, and I just wonder how they came up with that idea. Well, we're going to make him like some really deformed, mentally challenged
Yeah,
kid. You know what I mean?
yeah. It's a weird one. Do you think? I know, obviously, if we hadn't have gotten that scene at the end, there probably wouldn't have been maybe a continuation.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that though? Like, let's say we had got the movie and it had have just ended without that scene.
And we don't get any of the other movies.
It feels quite like, looking back now, I suppose in hindsight, it would feel quite like, now look, we probably wouldn't have had any reference points, so we wouldn't have known any better. But I don't know, I can't imagine like a world where we don't get to explore like, oh, okay, so who is this Jason kid or character or what? Like, is there more to him?
No. And that's kind of interesting because without that, I don't think I would love this movie as
Mhm.
much, right?
Yeah.
It was just like it's just like a even I was gonna say even like with Sleepaway Camp, they do get sequels, and I feel like they would have taken advantage of this movie and carried on, but it might have been just one other movie where maybe the dad now seeks revenge, because that's what a lot of people thought too. Is as we bring it into the second movie, I think that people did think that it could have been the father, which we never know who Jason's father actually is. I think they hint at it in some regard in some of the movies, but we don't actually know who his father is. And I think that people thought that in the second movie that it could have been the father, because everyone didn't know if it was actually going to be Jason, because he goes from this little scrawny, deformed child to this grown hulking man with a retard strength, right?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy as well to me that we never, not saying it would have been good or bad or whatever, but like kind of shocked that they never tried to explore like the dad aspect.
Yeah, I'm just looking it up. What happened to Jason's father? Friday the 13th revolves around machete wielding, hockey masked murderer Jason Voorhees. While most slashers have some kind of origin story that's developed over the course of a franchise, Jason's family has always been more or less vague, especially when it comes to his father. The mother and son bond that led his mother, Pamela Voorhees, to open hunting season on teenagers at Camp Crystal Lake after Jason's death is well explored in the first two films. Jason Goes to Hell introduces his half-sister. Oh, that's weird. We're going to be doing something fun on that for everybody. But who is the father? Elias Voorhees, been explored in the Friday the 13th movie, isn't a new concept. That's interesting. The original ending had, and Jason Lives had Jason visiting his father's grave. We don't really know. Elias Voorhees became part of Jason's story almost a decade before the script. Interesting. I like the we don't actually really know. It's just interesting that they had to have. Yeah, kind of did add it, and people don't really know who his father is. It kind of adds to kind of the lore of the movie, I guess. To some extent, really, weird. Yeah, though many ways someone could explore the Voorhees family tree, most of the fans of the Friday the 13th are curious about Jason's father, Elias. As one of the most popular horror franchises of all time, speculation and fan theories have run rampant. Interesting. Look at that. Look at that fun shirt with the Mickey Mouse. She looks kind of like a dyke.
Definitely looks like a boy.
Yeah, I know. Weird. So strange.
When I first looked at it there again, I was like, wait a sec, why does it look like a man?
I know. Maybe she is. You know, who knows? Nowadays, you don't know. But you should. Just as my Jamaican aunt used to say, she used to watch like the Maury specials where it'd be like, "Is this a man?" And she'd be like, "I can always tell by the eyes. It's always in the eyes." Literally.
So yeah, moving on to part 2, which was released just a year later.
Raghead Jason.
We had a different director. This time it was Steve Miner. The writer was Ron Kars.
Steve Miner.
Released on May 1st, 1981. 5 years after the events of the first film, a new group of counselors at a nearby camp are terrorized by a mysterious killer. Some key characters this time. We have Ginny Field, played by Amy Steele, Paul Holt, played by John Fury, and Jason Voorhees, who was played by Warrington Gillette and Steve Dash, which we'll get into the story actually about them shortly. Some notable facts about this one. This marks the first appearance of Jason Voorhees as the killer. And also, a lot of people don't know, if you haven't like really paid attention to the franchise, in this one, he wears a sack over his head with one eye hole instead of the iconic hockey mask.
Yes. I don't know how he saw very well, but that's a tiny eye hole.
Fucking awful looking.
It's so weird. Not gonna lie, this movie did grow on me. It was the first two, it's so funny, were my least favorite of the entire franchise. The second one has grown on me. I think it's fun, it's well done, and the pace of the film is fairly good. But when I was a kid, I was all about like, you know, Jason's mask. Can you bring up that? See if I can bring it up. Just keep carrying on. I got something to show you.
So in the studio, obviously, when they seen like the return on their investment or whatever, they were like super eager to do a sequel, and they sat down with Cunningham and stuff. And so his idea was the Friday the 13th name was kind of like the selling point, and he wanted to make each movie like completely different from each other, if you get what I mean, kind of like an anthology kind of thing, but it would be done under the umbrella of like Friday the 13th. So his idea was like, oh, any story could happen on a Friday the 13th because it's like a spooky day.
It's like what they want to do with Halloween.
Yeah, and like, do you know what? Right, in my head, like I was like, that's kind of a cool concept, but obviously, the studio were like, no. This made $40 million, and we're going to milk this story now. So
Of course,
you're gonna get with the program.
And this bring up my shared screen. This is the first appearance of my co-host Billy. If you don't know, a Strange Food Podcast. When I first watched this, like again, like a couple years ago, like 2 years ago, I was like, "Wow, that's Billy!" And I sent him like a story. I was like, "Look, it's your redheaded twin." And it, like, for all the people watching, if you're aware of the Strange Food Podcast, it does look a lot like Billy. It is fucking weird. When I rewatched it, I was like, "Man, this guy looks exactly like you, dude."
Maybe it's his long lost relative.
I know, could be. Just again, some of the outfits are hilarious. This is obviously an iconic scene of the head camp counselor, I guess, telling the story about what happened in the prior film, and that whole idea concept is very nostalgic. I'll keep using that word because it really is that it is. It's something that sticks in your head, of people hanging around by a campfire telling scary stories. I feel like we've all done it. I feel like the newer generations probably don't get an opportunity to be able to do those things like that. But when I was growing up, yeah, we sit around campfire, or, you know, late at night having some drinks, telling scary stories. You know, this is especially prevalent within the 80s and 90s. And just like the outfits are very iconic, you know, no bras. Look at that fun hat, you know, wife beaters. For some reason, everyone wore football jerseys with nobody's name on it, you know?
Yeah, very bizarre. Very bizarre.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Some iconic kill scenes. I love this one. But yeah. So let's get into it.
Also, something I wrote down was, so, you know, they bring back the chick from the first one, and she gets killed. That's something I think doesn't get talked about a lot, because so if you look at a movie like, I'm not taking anything away from it, but like if you look at a movie, say like Scream, which I love.
Yeah.
Everybody talked about the fact that, you know, they had Drew Barrymore or whatever at the start of the movie, and then she dies, and it's like the whole like, oh my God, Casey Becker was killed straight away, and like that sets the tone for like anything could happen.
Anyone could die.
Yeah, this kind of done that though in 1981 when you think about it, because they brought back essentially the final girl.
Oh yeah.
Like it kind of set the tone for like, well, she's dead already, so anything could happen from here on out.
Yeah, this does it way before any other movie, you know. It's just it is pretty. I was reading one of my notes. It's like, who loves short shorts? Gotta love the nudity. There's a lot of tits in this one. And then I was watching some of the documentaries. I can't remember which one. The guy's like, I think I counted 3 on that one. We kind of lacked that a bit. I can't remember which one it was, like the 5th one or something like that. And It's like, yeah, the whole part of the premise is like, and that's the thing. You think about the 80s, man. I wish I was there. I wish I was in those movie theaters. I want to experience that. All the guys be like, woo, yeah. Like, you know what I mean? When the chick gets naked, that I'm sure that happened a ton. Right. And it's just a different time. People were I feel like a lot more rowdy and wild back then. It wasn't like this shh thing. Like you think about the scene in It, right? Where everyone's yelling in the movies, they spill the popcorn on the bullies, like that whole. It was just kind of this vibe, right? My dad used to tell me about going to see Rocky Horror Picture Show, people all dressed up, dancing in the aisles, just like drinking and shit. It just sounds like it sounds better. It sounds like a better time.
Yeah, I seen a lot of the people who were involved in the movies, even on like part 3 as well. I think they were talking about when they went to go see the movie. Obviously, they went to like the premieres and stuff, but then they went to like, you know, their local movie theater and stuff, and the fact that like every showing was like sold out.
Yeah.
And you know, you'd get there and it was basically like what you said. Like there's a section in the book where they're all asked about, like, you know, did you go see the movie multiple times or did you go and try and see what the audience were thinking? And everybody had the same thing. They were like, yeah, there was like, you know, people fucking throwing popcorn everywhere and screaming and shouting, and like people were climbing over chairs and like going right up to the screen, and like
Just different times, man. Yeah, like the Simpsons, like that thing where the what they call it, the cashier, not the cashiers, but the guys that like run them. I can't remember they come with the big chocolate bars. The ushers, yeah, and they like crack off the Kit Kat bars, are beating all the people in the theater. It just seems like a different time. Have you ever done anything dirty in a movie theater?
sure.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah. When I was younger, like way younger, and it's funny because later in life, then I hired a guy
To
in
give you a
work.
blowjob in the movie theater?
Uh,
Just kidding.
I hired a guy who was the assistant manager in like our local movie theater, and not the
Yeah.
one that I would have been doing like anything spooky in. But he was saying, he was like, for years though, movie theaters have had night vision cameras up in the corner by the screen. So he was like, anybody that's ever doing that stuff is like on camera doing it. He was like, the amount of times like we seen like essentially kids like 14, like 13.
Oh, that's fucked.
The chick is like sucking the dude off and all that. And he was like, it's just so wild, like, because they
Wow, so
think,
someone
oh,
definitely caught us on camera.
yeah.
We did it like a couple of years ago. Just
Ooh.
quickly, I got very nervous, but just we're the only ones in the movie theater. So a little sucky down below on me from the wife. It's like,
I mean, I wouldn't complain, and I would probably do it now still, but I would be like way more aware probably.
yeah, I
Like when
know.
I was younger, it seemed like,
Just point at the
fine,
camera.
yeah, it's like, oh, whatever, fine, who cares? But now, like, I'd probably be dying with anxiety.
I know, it's so crazy. Just different times. So I love talking about these films, and I was really excited to talk about this one because it is something that I'll always go back to. You know, every summer, mostly I watch these movies or near Halloween, and you know, it's always stuck in my head. Like I said, I was drawing Jason when I was very young. Like I was just a fun character. I could draw if Freddy was too hard. So I would have him like staying with the machete and then like bodies around him or drawing cabins with blood on it, whatever it was. And I was like intrigued by this because it was taboo, right? Shouldn't have been watching it at such a young age. And I almost like idolized Jason, which is such a weird thing, but really that's what it was some sort of like admiration for like, oh, he's such a cool.
Nowadays now when you get fucking vilified and like
Yeah.
locked in a padded cell.
Yeah. I also think that Jeffrey Dahmer was like a really good guy. I think he was really nice. I think that he would have made a good friend. You know, I think that he was very creative. He was an artist.
Yeah. That stuff off camera.
Jesus, everybody. Have a drink. Calm it down.
The John Fury who played Paul Holt in the movie, I thought this was just like a weird piece of trivia, but he was actually born on Friday the 13th. And when he auditioned for this movie, he auditioned for the movie on Friday the 13th.
I'm made for this, you fuckers.
That's kind of like what he said. Also, the guy who played Jason. So this is kind of like, there's a whole big messy story. It was a guy called Warrington Gillette who played Jason in part 2, and so he quit after about 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
because people were questioning him about. They were filming that scene, where he bursts through the window.
Yeah.
And like it kept going wrong constantly all the time with the
Weird.
harness and everything. And like people started to question, were like, could you tell me, like, some of the stunt coordinators and stuff were like, okay, so you said you had lots of experience in stunts and different things like that. Could you tell me exactly what movies you done stunts in, or who paid you previous to do stunts? And like he would never. Supposedly, everyone on set started to kind of go, wait a second, I don't know if this guy ever actually like worked as a stuntman, but he just doubled down and he was like, "No, I'm definitely a stunt guy." So he eventually quit, and he was replaced by a stuntman called Steve Dash, um, who, when he got the word, he was like, "Oh, I got the lead role. This is amazing." Steve Miner sat down with him because obviously they were panicking. They needed someone to replace him for Jason.
Yeah.
And he was like filling him full of shit. Like he's like, "Oh, I got this role for you. It's the lead role in a horror movie." And blah. And then like he shows up on set
You
and
gotta
he's
put a
like,
bag on your head, bud.
yeah, they were like, "Oh, have you got the bag yet? Have you checked out the bag fit?" And he was like, "What bag?" They're like, "Oh, you have to wear a bag on your head." And he's like, "Oh, how long do I have to wear that for?" And they're like, "Oh, the entire movie." And then when you do take it off, you'll have all prosthetics and shit on you, so like you won't.
So fuck, man, I'm really hot. I wanted the
Yeah.
chick to see me.
So like the dude went from like telling everyone he got the lead role to basically like being never seen, like his actual face or anything, so no one would ever believe him. And then to add insult to injury, Warrington Gillette's agent, after he walked off the set, whatever contract and stuff they had signed, they were still legally obliged to credit him as Jason Voorhees. So his agent was like, "Well, I'll take you guys to court if you try and remove him from the credits." So the new stuntman who came on, who done 95% of the movie, he had to take a stunt double credit, which must have been so shit. Like
That's crazy. There's iconic deaths in this film too, and everyone gets hurt on set and stuff like that, right? So in one take of Allison's death, the prop ice pick didn't retract and injured her actually. As the outfit wasn't bad enough, one of the prop guys had it out for King 2 and didn't do his job right. So like she got like stuck up, which is crazy. There's some cool deaths, and it does do again like the killer's POV. And the camera with the knife angle was iconic scene from Psycho. They definitely utilized some of that. Oh yeah, 3 actors played Jason. Pretty crazy. So weird, man.
Yeah,
And this was definitely one.
I thought this was unique. So Steve, I think it's Steve Dash.
Yeah.
They're filming the scene. I can't remember where he gets hit with a machete.
Yeah.
And the chick it's the only time in the whole movie they used an actual machete and not a stunt one, because they figured that it wasn't going to be too dangerous. And it ended up, they didn't realize until after they called cut, but he had actually been caught by the machete. They nearly chopped his fingers off.
That's crazy.
These images on screen right now, for anybody who is looking at the video format of this, is them at the hospital. And he said to him when they were leaving to go to the hospital, like, "You're gonna need stitches." Like, he was like, "Let's leave the machete and stuff in my shoulder and let's walk into ER with that in it." And that's, you can kind of see it's blurry, but you can see the doctor is laughing. So supposedly like all the nurses came out and they were all like taking photographs and stuff because they thought it was like hilarious.
Yeah, because I'm sure when you first saw that, they may have thought that it was.
Everyone was like panicking. Yeah, all the interns were like running around the place and like grabbing stuff, and I was like, "No, it's just prosthetic. It's fine."
That's crazy. Weird. In fact, there's 48 seconds of the film were cut due to avoid X rating. Doesn't sound like much, but 48 seconds could be 48 shots of really cool gore effects. Didn't know that. That's pretty interesting because they got to dance that line realistically of how much they can have, and then it's like really who's judging it, right? Somebody's midwife. No, somebody like New Jersey housewife.
What do you think about so there was a concept to have, like this, so this image here, we see the altar from like the opposite side.
Yeah.
These are like some behind the scenes images and stuff, but they actually considered having her head like properly smile.
Weird.
With teeth and stuff, like, so you could see it. and then her eyes would open.
Weird. I don't know if that would be.
Mm.
I feel like that's a stretch though, because she's supposed to be dead, right? And like
That
would she be
like,
smiling? And unless the only way would be if Jason was like forcing it to smile and
no, supposedly it was like they were gonna leave like it. They were what was it again? I can't remember exactly, but they were gonna leave like the final kill like a mystery.
yeah.
And then it was going to cut to black, and then it was going to come back for a second, and it was going to show the altar with the head on it, and then she was going to smile, and her eyes were going to open, and that was supposed to like let the audience know that, oh well, everyone died.
So weird. This is disgusting.
I kind of guessed because you looked at it a couple of times, and I was like,
Cocoa rum. I like the other one. I think it's with vodka. Like I like coconut stuff. It tastes awful. It tastes like chocolate sunscreen. That's
sick.
fun. Pretty crazy. So Marta Kober, who played Sandra, was underage at the time of the filming. The actress originally had a scene with full frontal nudity, but when Paramount discovered her real age, they had the scene deleted completely. Interesting that they filmed the scene to begin with. She was probably 17, maybe 17, maybe 16, like who fucking knows. And then they filmed her with full frontal nudity and then took it out of the film. Because they're like, oh, fuck. Some pervert's like, God damn it.
Damn. Someone's listening to this now is on the sex offenders list, is like frantically Googling to see can they find it.
It's so funny.
A lot of people prefer this movie than the first one. What's your opinion on that?
I think when it comes to kill and pacing, I do think that it is better in my opinion. It's one of the first two are definitely my least favorite. Even how goofy some of them get, this is but like I said, this one did grow on me, and and it became more. It's so fun. So funny. That's fucking hilarious. Yeah, it's crazy, and this is like in this. I don't know. Then you get the nostalgic face. Of like his weird. That's something that's always going to be nostalgic, right? Is that kind of deformed face that he has in specifically this movie, and then it kind of opens the door for them eventually showing his face in other movies, right?
Yeah, it's weird. I couldn't really find out too much actually about the concept of like where that all came from. I think it just kind of happened over time. I don't know if it was even like a conscious decision by anybody in particular.
Yeah.
It just kind of, I don't know, I suppose morphed into that where it was like, well, I guess that's what he looks like.
Well, because they obviously had an idea. Do you think that they probably wanted to show his face at some point?
Yeah, I just think the concept of like how he ended up looking was just a bit more like
thrown together.
We'll just go with that. It'll be fine.
Weird. Yeah, this is it's Amy Steele is not a fan of the scene where Jason jumps through the window and grabs her. Her frightened reaction is very, very real. The scene took 3 takes and she would tense up and get scared every time the camera started rolling because probably it was out of nowhere. Interesting. Paul's fate even confused the actors involved in the film. Do we know if Paul died? The film leaves his fate so ambiguous that everyone involved even agrees that it's one of the series, out of the series, the most confusing endings because you don't really. Weird. Interesting. Yeah, it said that the head was going to smile and wink, man. That's fucking so dumb. I don't know if I like that at all.
That's like a more of like a Freddy Krueger kind of a.
Yeah, we didn't rate the first one. So out of 10 machetes, what do you give the first one?
I don't know, like a 6 maybe.
Yeah, 5. I was gonna say a 6 or a 7 just because it's a staple in horror history, right?
Yeah.
And then for the second one, I would say about the same, like a 6. And it's funny because my ratings will be different. And what other people will think, because there's some really shitty ones that I actually like. So
That's the thing, because I feel like some of the later ones are ones I prefer, and it'll probably be higher rated in my opinion. This one was made on a budget of 1.2 million estimated, and a worldwide gross of 21.7 million. So not as successful as the original movie.
Man, it's just so weird. I was looking up some of the actors in the second one, and the one chick that was supposed to have a nude scene, she looks fucking gnarly now. She definitely got involved with drugs. I think one of them, yeah, she looks pretty weird. Scary people when they grew up and they start doing drugs. It's fucking, yeah. Can you share my screen? I think it should be. Look at this woman's. Oh, that's not the one I want. Let's see. Here, I'm gonna cancel out that one. I don't want you to see this. It is kind of messed up. Here, let's look up her now. What the fuck is going on? So let's go now.
Boobies?
No, I can't. We're not doing that because that'd be a bad idea.
We'll get banned.
Right now, bring it up. Look at this chick's face, man.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
What happened from this to this? Like, you can see it's still her, but man, that's like meth and shit. Like this and then this. Like, drugs really do take a hold of people, man. That's a scary looking lady.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's like the chick that like you wouldn't give your spare change to.
That's fucking freaky. It's just so crazy what people look like when they're younger and then what happens to them. Wild. Sorry, lady, if you're listening to this, you look scary. You look like you should play a witch in a movie. Maybe you should get back into acting doing that. Might be a good idea. So we're gonna dive into part 3, 3D, or how do you want to break it down for the finish the second one?
Well, look, I feel like we both kind of gave our opinions on that. Like for me, the first two were kind of
I know
they're okay, but they're not my favorites. I prefer some of the others.
Yeah, me too. But they have to be covered just for the deep dive.
Of course, yeah, of course.
And the baghead Jason is, he's nostalgic in his own right. I do really miss playing the game, because it was always fun. And you start to hear like the music, like da na 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 na, and you'd have like 8-bit Jason chasing you. Like, it was really fun. I actually did like those games, and it's just sad that what happened to them, So everybody, let's get into part 3.
So we have Friday the 13th Part 3, which was released in 1982. So at this point now, in the space of 2 years, they've pumped out 3 movies, which is fucking wild. Steve Miner returns again as director. We have several writers, apparently. Martin Kitrosser, Carol Watson, and Petru Popescu. I don't know where they get
nice names, man.
Fucking names out of. Release date of August 13th, 1982. Plot summary. Jason Voorhees stalks a group of friends who are vacationing at a house near Crystal Lake. Some key characters this time. We have Chris Higgins, played by Dana Kimmel. Rick, played by Paul Crackta. And Jason Voorhees, played by Richard Brooker. Notable facts. Filmed in 3D, capitalizing on the early 80s 3D craze. And this is where Jason acquires his iconic hockey mask for the first time.
Yes, and actually, it's fucking Friday the 14th. It's supposed to take place like the next day after the second film. So it's technically Saturday the 14th. So it's pretty, like, by the time Friday the 13th Part 2 came around in 1981, theaters had become overrun with low budget, low quality slasher fare with titles like The Burning, New Year's Eve, Prom Night, Christmas Evil, My Bloody Valentine, Happy Birthday to Me, Graduation Day, Terror Train, and The Final Exam. Some of these we will cover on ClassHorrorCast. Not surprising, slasher film fatigue set in, and Part 2 opened big but trailed off fast, finished with a total that was only around half of what Friday the 13th pulled in a year earlier. It was still hugely profitable, of course, thus mandating a sequel, but Part 2 left a loose end with Ginny, Amy Steele, and everyone agreed that Jason needed a better mask than that stupid pillowcase. Plus, after Part 2's box office nosedive, they needed a shot in the arm. They needed a gimmick. They needed 3D. So that's pretty crazy. Classic I tried to watch it in 3D. I was drinking and very high, and I really tried. Chelsea was away. I had the house to myself. I pulled up the couch right up to the TV, and there were some iconic shots that like I saw that were pretty 3D. It looked decent, but my eyes could not adjust long enough to actually be able to withstand watching it.
I feel like that would make me fucking sick now, to be honest.
It's
like that old school 3D. I feel like would make me nauseous.
I wanted to watch it outside on the projector. I think that would be kind of cool and nostalgic. And I think it was working when I actually focused on it. But then there's times I was taking a drink and I looked at whatever it might be, right? Look at my phone for a sec. And then your eyes don't get adjusted anymore. And it's I was in the dark. I'm trying to take out my glass. Like I can't even see shit. It's pretty interesting.
The guy who played Jason in part 2, Steve Dash, I think he was shocked when he was invited back again to play Jason, because normally they would always just hire a new stuntman because they could pay him the minimum.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you were returning, you would probably, after the success of the last movie, you could require more payment or whatever. Yeah. And he was shocked when he got the phone call from the studio to say like that they wanted him to reprise the role again, and thought he'd done a good job and whatever. And he was like, okay, well, he lived, I think at the time, on the East Coast or wherever. So he's like, how do you guys going to arrange for me like to fly out to California or whatever? And they're like, no, you're going to have to make your own flight arrangements and travel arrangements to get to set. And he's like, but I played Jason. I'm like the lead character or whatever. It was like, yeah. And they were like, whoever he was talking to on the phone, whatever executive or assistant, or whatever, like, no, you need to remember, you are a nobody. So you need to like figure your shit out. And it all fell apart from there. So they brought on a new guy by the name of Richard Brooker, who played Jason in this movie. And previously he was a circus performer for 18 years. It was kind of weird. He was the dude, it was like acrobatics or whatever, but he was like the dude doing all like he would throw the chicks up and like grab them and do all that shit.
That's fun.
Weird, kind of a unique, going from being in a circus for nearly 20 years to playing Jason Voorhees.
That is weird.
The girl who survived that night at Camp Blood, that Friday the 13th.
They learned their lesson after part 2. Don't kill off the sole survivor. In the opening moments of the sequel, this since turned into a horror movie cliche. Obviously, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, Halloween Resurrection, Maniac Cop 2. I've actually never seen any of those movies, so maybe we might have to cover them. So good. Yeah, okay. As is, we never learn what became of Ginny after part 2, but it wasn't by choice. The producers wanted her to be there. Jamie Lee Curtis, at least one film longer, director Steve Miner and Martin, whatever that guy's name is, the script supervisor for parts 1 and 2 and co-writer for part 3, wanted Ginny to go to a mental institution as a result of her trauma. After part 2, Jason would eventually arrive to settle his vendetta against her, killing any guards, doctors, and patients who got in his way. You know, classic Jason. Hold on. Isn't that just Halloween 2? Kind of, except for that film, everything happens immediately after the events of the first Halloween. Plus, it's a regular hospital, not a psychiatric institute. But any fear of being accused of a Halloween 2 mimicry, which ultimately derailed their Jason in hospital idea, they were more scared fans would just reject Friday the 13th, which didn't follow the established formula of attractive teens at a camp. Jason kills them. One girl survives, confusing dream sequences, ending rinse and repeat. Amy Steele helped change their minds for good when she officially declined to come back, thinking her career was on the verge of a takeoff. She initially was right, landing regular roles on 2 short-lived TV shows. But in 1986, though, she again ran up on screen, evading a knife-wielding killer in some sort of slasher parody April Fool's Day. Looking back on today, Steele admits that she has some regrets not coming back for part 3. So it's interesting. I think it might be her, is the one that she had a pretty traumatic event happen to her. I think it was her, and she got stalked. And this fan was like stalking her like crazy. I heard her talk about it. I'm pretty sure it was her talking about it on one of the panels, and that it like traumatized her for a long time. That this guy like would show up at her house, all sorts of crazy shit.
pretty fucking spooky.
Yeah.
I'm gonna skip forward here a bit,
Mhm.
but so we have this, right? The original Friday the 13th Part 3 ending revealed in pictures. As each year passes by, Friday the 13th fans become even more impatient and wanting to see the unedited films in the franchise released on home video. Sadly, fans may never see these uncut films due to lost footage or damaged film negatives. Compounding the frustration is knowing that certain cut or alternate scenes do indeed exist and have been reported about for decades. Quite possibly the most infamous alternate ending in the franchise comes in Part 3, which contains the much talked about decapitation of the final girl, Chris Higgins. This scene was the original intended ending for the film, but there has been much confusion towards if this lost ending actually was shot on film. If there was still some lingering doubt by fans, today we have for all of our readers should now lay this to rest.
Yeah, that's not him, right? Like that's a different face makeup.
Billy Carcass has unearthed some of the most important still photography ever witnessed by Friday the 13th fans. Visual representation of the long lost original ending to the third film of the franchise. There's still no actual motion footage out there.
That's not his. Like that's the scene that they're talking about. Like some of the shots that they have, because that's
Yeah.
not him from the third. That's so weird. It looks
Yeah.
so different.
So for the original ending, Chris awakens in the canoe on Crystal Lake after the events of the previous evening left her as the lone survivor. She rows back to shore and begins walking towards the house with an exhausted demeanor. She suddenly hears a noise from the house and, thinking it's Rick, begins to run to the porch of the house. Once she arrives at the front door, it suddenly bursts open. Jason emerges to the surprise of Chris. He then grabs her by the hair and chops her head off with a machete. These images show the original look of Jason Voorhees as well, which was a mask designed by effects artist Stan Winston. After the decision was made to excise this original ending, the look of Jason was completely overhauled to what we now see in the film today.
Yeah, it's crazy because for part 3, they wanted a mask, which wouldn't cause audience members to snicker. But they immediately said, oh, I know, a hockey mask. I mean, it would have been cool if it had been that simple. Instead, it was entirely accidental. Instead, during pre-production, Miner requested a makeup test to get an update on what Jason would look like and whatever or not the 3D was working the way they wanted. However, general laziness kicked in, and the head of the effects on the film, new 3D effects supervisor Martin J. Sadoff, kept a bag full of hockey gear with him. So they just used the Detroit Red Wings goaltender mask to cover the face in the makeup test. Miner liked what he saw and then created their own mask, which was bigger and featured multiple times. The oft-told story goes like this: during the pre-production, Miner requested a makeup test. Jason looked like, oh, why did they say they repeat this? Yeah, pretty interesting. And then they created their own mask, featured multiple air holes and strategically placed red markings. Miner approved everything, but no one can claim total ownership over the idea. And it is nostalgic, man. This is one of the most fucking nostalgic masks to ever exist, in my opinion. Just a very simple look, but man, it stuck, dude. It definitely stuck. It's so crazy, man.
Yeah, it is wild to think like that.
I feel like I knew a kid that looked like that. Not gonna lie, with the cleft lip and stuff, and then one eye hanging down low. Where's that one? Do you have the one picture I think that we made or whatever, where he's like at the window? Is that I rewatching it? I was like, that's such a freaky thing. No, when he's like, that's weird. That head looks so fake.
That's so fucking freaky looking, isn't
when
it?
the eye shoots out. There's some really fun scenes. I like the beginning with like, that's awesome too. I like the beginning with like where they're kind of it's at that house. And I kind of got the drunk storekeeper and he's like eating, right there where he's in the window. That even rewatching that now, I was like, that shit is like just freaky looking, man.
Yeah.
He's like, and he's like knocking out the window and stuff. It's like such a weird thing. But even the beginning is kind of funny, right? With the kind of characters and the wife with her hair and curlers and the husband, and he's going into like the little market that they own and eating the food, and he's got the rabbit with it. Just like it was that's always stuck in my head. And then we have Shelley, obviously, very iconic character. I love Shelley. He's just like that prankster type of loser, wants people to like him, but he does it out of obnoxiousness. So it sounds familiar. The two typical hippies. Actually, my favorite character to play in the game was the one hippie. One of my favorites to play in the game. Which is so funny. I love Shelley though. Without him, I don't know if this film would be the same.
Yeah, this is another movie where I think at first I was a bit like, not like overly pushed, and then it kind of grew on me over time.
I love this one.
Yeah, I definitely started to like it more.
I watched it outside last year, not in 3D, but we did watch it outside on the projector. And I think, if I remember, I should have that video somewhere where I'm watching it with the mask on. Chelsea just pans over. I'm sitting there wearing my gear. It's just, it's definitely growing me. They have another old guy, again, with warning them, the archetype and pointing the eyeball. Remember the eyeball scene? And everything you can see is purposely shot in like trying to have it in 3D. Another warning from a crazy guy, So and they're like, "What the fuck? What's that?" It's his eyeball.
This one again, kind of, I suppose, in a way, reinvigorated the studio because I think the budget was around 2.2 million, and this one ended up making 36.7 million worldwide, which was nearly double again what the second one did. So they were back to making a lot of money.
Imagine going to see this in 3D at the time, being like 16, 17, like, you know what I mean? It would have been so fucking awesome. You smoke a little of your shitty weed, because back then weed was like very low grade, and just like going with a bunch of your friends or a girl, or especially back then, people traveled in groups. The world has changed because of the internet and in a lot of negative ways, but it gives us the opportunity to do shows like this and to reach people. But I think that the world was kind of better in the 80s, and you would probably grab a group of your friends, you and two other buddies and their girlfriends, go out to the movies. We're going to go see Friday the 13th part 3. This is going to be fucking awesome. And you get all stoked for it. Maybe take a couple shots or drink some beer beforehand, or hide some beer and bring it in. And I feel like it was that kind of vibe. Well, it's 3D, pretty wild to do in the Friday the 13th 3D. And then obviously I think the mask was leaked and people knew what were aware. But you don't know, because this is the iconic picture of kind of the 3D coming through the shower, with the machete.
Did you know that this is the only movie, I think, in the franchise, including Freddy vs. Jason and all the other stuff, where he's not actually mentioned by name at all?
Really?
Yeah. They don't mention his name at all. Not once. Not once does anybody speak the word Jason.
Weird. Yeah, I did right. They really attempt to do 3D shots. Probably
issues as well with that, apparently, like from reading the behind the scenes in the book. Like a lot of the stories seem to revolve around how difficult it became to film in 3D, and like the amount of issues they were having, and the fact that it was a huge undertaking, because I think when House of Wax came out in 3D, like that only released in like 200 theaters or something. And they were planning like nearly 2,000 theaters. So they actually had to send teams out to movie theaters to like recalibrate and like do stuff with all the projectors to make sure that it would be able to play the 3D and stuff. And then whatever way it was shown at the time, I think in 3D, some of the screens after 20 minutes would burn out.
Weird. And that's House of Wax, right?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? Like of part 3?
Yeah, like
okay. I thought you said House of Wax.
Yeah, I did. When House of Wax was released in 3D.
Oh, it was released in 3D. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I got a question, because I just pulled that up really quickly. Is the original House of Wax good? Is Vincent Price?
I don't think so, but again, I mean,
I'll give it a try. I actually might watch that sometime.
But yeah, it was one of those things where like it was such a huge undertaking, because obviously
it was in 3D. Weird.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
1953. That's weird.
That's what I'm saying to you. Like the
What?
gimmick, and it released in 200 theaters. So when they decided to like bring back 3D for this movie, it was such a big undertaking because they were doing like 15 or 1800 theaters. So they had to make sure this equipment was going to hold up in all these theaters for all these screenings.
Yeah, weird. I did not know that. 1953. That's fucking ambitious to do 3D.
I know, right? I know.
Do you know what the first 3D movie was?
I actually don't. Could that have
Okay,
been it? No.
maybe that's crazy. They had a 3D movie in
I,
1950.
I know. Yeah, I know.
That's very weird.
I know. It's fucking wild.
First 3D film. I want to know what the hell that's interesting. You keep going. I'm gonna look this up.
Oh, well, I was going to ask your opinion on something. Was what I was actually going to do.
What? The first 3D film ever was The Power of Love. Sexy. Which premiered in Los Angeles on September 27th, 1922.
Whoa.
Wow. The Power of Love was a silent film that used the anaglyphic 3D process, which required, I don't know if I'm saying that right, required viewers to wear special glasses with one red, one blue lens. Wow. That's fucking crazy. 1922. That blows my mind. Not gonna lie, that's pretty crazy.
Imagine how insane that must have been in 1922.
I wonder how insane it would be to see like the boobies, man, in part 3. You know what I mean? In 3D, like, whoa, I can see the nipples in my eye.
A lot of dudes just jerking off. Yeah, I was going to ask, and I know it's kind of like skipping around or whatever a bit, but
Yeah, we're kind
how do you feel about the ending to this one?
The kind of, there's a couple of things, right? When he's like, the mask starts coming off. I put so weird when he pulls up the mask and smiles at her. Do you remember when he does that? When he's like, he's attacking her in the barn and he's like, and then puts it back down. It's so weird. I'm like, why would you add that? It's like, it is very creepy.
Like what's his name from fucking the remake of Hills of Ice, where he's like,
yeah, so weird. That whole scene is weird. The ending, are you talking about when his mother, having his mom come out of it? I said it's kind of cheesy. Isn't she supposed to be headless? Is what I wrote down.
Yeah, like that. So like, just to break it down, I guess, for people, when we get towards the end of the movie, Chris stumbles down the lake shore and rolls away in a canoe. The next morning comes. She is horrified to see an unmasked and bloody Jason glare at her through a cabin window and then barge out the door running towards her. After frantically trying to escape and screaming, she looks up to see that the cabin door is intact and Jason is nowhere to be seen. It was just a hallucination. But her relief soon ends when the rotting corpse of Pamela Voorhees leaps from the lake, dragging Chris underneath the surface of the water. Chris later wakes up realizing it was all a nightmare.
Yeah, I think it's kind of it's a little cheesy, you know.
You think? Not for you?
No, I don't think it was necessary, you know, realistically. I'm trying to look up the different kill counts for some of the movies because I'm actually interested. Counted deaths. 11 in the first movie. It's not too bad. Yeah, such a like that's not the original. That's not the face that it was showing in the movie though, which is crazy.
There's so many like different.
Do you have any taglines for this movie?
I do actually.
Okay, so in the second movie, the kill count is 10. No, wait, second movie kill. Oh, so the original movie, it looks like there's 10, including Pamela Voorhees. So once at 11. Second movie, the kill count is 10 again, and then this movie, the kill count is 12. Pretty decent. Started to ramp up.
Yeah, like that. He became like synonymous with having like huge kill count as well, didn't he?
Well, yeah, and then he kind of this in the third one, it really shows that he has this like retard strength, right? That like he kind of it builds up to that, right? So you have like Harold chest struck with a cleaver. Edna. So this is Edna and Harold at the beginning. Very funny, nostalgic. Head stabbed with a knitting needle. That's fun. I got Fox. She was a good character play in the game. Actually, I don't like her in the movie because she's a bitch. I'm like, you deserve to die. She's just fucking with that chick at the store for like no reason. Head stabbed with or throat impaled with a pitchfork. Loco stabbed, impaled with a pitchfork. Nice. Vera, eye shot with a spear gun. That's a fun kill. I actually really like that one. She's like, Shelly, what are you doing? And then she's like, wait, who are you? And, and then it's just like right through the skull. You got Andy sliced in half with a machete. Debbie impaled with a knife. Shelly slashed with a machete. Chuck electrocuted by a fuse box. That's always fun. That's like in the game, it kind of brings him towards you. Some of the stuff does make me think of the nostalgic aspect of the game. Chili, stomach impaled with a hot fire poker. That's a fun kill in the game. Also, that's a fun because you could do some dope kills within the game. And it just reminds me of that. Rick, head crushed, eyes popped there. That's where you get the 3D eye popping out of. And then Allie, bludgeoned with a wrench, hacked apart with a machete. So that's nice. Sir brought this up. Well, I'll bring that up for the next for part 4 too. So that'll be fun.
Some pretty inventive kills there.
100%.
Some of the taglines we have: join Jason in the woods if you dare. Big crap.
Yeah.
Meet Jason in a whole new dimension.
It's okay.
A new dimension in terror.
Actually, well, it's not that bad.
Yeah, that's not bad. Camp Crystal Lake's Bloody Legacy.
That's okay. What do you think there's a Camp Crystal Meth?
Probably.
A bunch of tweakers fucking
We should make that movie, actually.
It would be funny. But the killer has to be like, it's either the killer has to be like some sort of psychotic meth head.
Yeah, like with like 1 tooth.
Yeah.
That'd actually be kind of fucking scary going through the woods with one of them chasing you on bath salts or something.
Bread cousin. And I'll work my way through those horrible movies you love so much. Wrong turn. I will work through those. I think I'm on 3 or 4. I can't remember.
So bad. And then the final one is a new dimension in terror. There's nowhere to hide. We dare you to try.
It's okay, that's okay, I guess. But even like in the third one too, like they don't really show that it is Jason till later on. Like they keep he becomes more prevalent within the movies that people want to see him, especially in the first 3. He's not really shown a lot until like he's just kind of stalking around. You just get like certain shots, again, killer's POV. And then at the ending, it's like full tilt where he's like running around, killing everybody, especially within the barn scene.
Yeah, I do enjoy this movie more than the first 2 probably. But again, I feel like it's still at this point, it still hadn't ramped up for me where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm really like, I feel like that really started for me with part 4.
Oh yeah, that's my fucking favorite. So let's bring it in. I will give part 3. I think it's a very nostalgic one out of the entire franchise. And because I love this movie, I gotta give it up. I'll do like a 7.8, almost an 8, but not an 8 yet.
I give it a solid 7, I think.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's a good fun one, so.
So yeah, next up we have Friday the 13th, the final chapter, released in 1984, directed by Joseph Zito. Writer was Barney Cohen, released on April 13th, 1984. Jason Voorhees returns to Crystal Lake and continues his killing spree, targeting a family and a group of teenagers. Key characters this time we have Tommy Jarvis, played by Corey Feldman, Trish Jarvis, played by Kimberly Beck, Jason Voorhees, played by Ted White. There's like loads of fucking other people, Crispin Glover.
My favorite.
Yeah, Tom's favorite ever. Some notable facts: this movie was marketed as the final installment in the series. It introduces Tommy Jarvis, who became a recurring character in the franchise, and it is also known for its more intense and gruesome kills.
Love it. It's one of the greatest films in the franchise, especially Especially Crispin Glover's dancing. It's some of the best shit ever. He does not know how to dance. He said that he wanted to put this in the film just because he used to do this at the nightclubs when he was trying to suck off guys in the washroom to get some coke. I don't know if that's actually a true story.
Oh, weird. Like,
But yeah, it's a very funny scene where he's just like, he does not know how to dance. Crispin Glover is an interesting character. You can hear more thoughts about that on the commentary. But this is a great one. I fucking love this film. Yeah, last film in the series to pick up immediately where the last previous film left off, which technically means then it's Friday the 15th or Sunday the 15th or something. It's actually Friday the 13th. Or it's like maybe it's like a year later or something, but it's supposed to pick up right after. So
this one was shot on a budget of 2.8 million apparently.
yeah.
And it made back just under $34 million. And that was the reason why it didn't end up being the final chapter, because Paramount wanted to milk it dry.
Like they did, and they made some awesome movies, in my opinion. I love them.
I just love how easily, like, right, when you come up with like stories and stuff, like creatives have like, okay, let's make this like the final chapter and like put a, you know, kind of a bookend on it and leave it alone. And then like the movie comes out, it makes like nearly $40 million again. And like the studio are obviously like, well, we're making another one. And it's like, come up with a title. And then like the next movie becomes Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. And it's like, we'll just fuck. Yeah, we'll just like make up a whole new story and all.
It's so funny, and we'll get into it. The part 5 used to be my least favorite, just like part 5, just like Nightmare on Elm Street 5 was my least favorite of the franchise. Both the 5s and my 2 favorite franchise horror movies. It was always part 5s that I did not like because I felt like they just went overboard. As I've grown up, as I've acquired a different taste and stuff, part 5 is one of my favorites. I think it's pretty good. And we'll talk about it when we get there. But rumors used to suggest that by 1983, Paramount had become embarrassed by their association with the Friday the 13th, thus preferring ending things. You know, we're going to end to this with part 4. However, despite how hard Siskel and Ebert at the time to will this into reality, it's mostly untrue. Paramount was aware the slasher fad had been played out due to the overexposure, which is why it seemed a good idea to bring Friday the 13th to the end. However, it wasn't their idea. That come from Frank Mancuso Jr., started out the production assistant on part 2, and quickly risen to the ranks of producer for part 3. In a short time, he had grown to resent the franchise because in Hollywood, once you become known as the guy who does a certain kind of thing, they'll never see you as anything else. So he wanted to kind of bring it to a close, which didn't work out in his favor.
No, and like anything like this that makes money is just they're never gonna let it go.
No.
Which look, I get in one sense, because I suppose money is like the bottom line for a lot of these companies. Like that's why they get into it. So like they're never just going to let it die if it still makes money.
Yes.
Drink. You have to drink your chocolate sunscreen. Or whatever you call it. So yeah, Jason in this one was played by stuntman Ted White. He actually refused screen credit for the role because he had personal reservations about these type of movies. He has since come out and talked about it in length and says that it turned out to be much better than he anticipated. Nevertheless, he got into the spirit of things while on set, as he would only have minimal interaction with the rest of the cast because he didn't want them to become too familiar around him. He feared it would interfere with their performances. He was also very concerned about the well-being of his co-stars. In one heavily publicized incident, the actress who portrayed the character of Samantha Juni Arison was required to perform her nude death scene in the middle of a raft in the dead of winter. She became so cold that she actually started crying. But director Zito did not want to stop the filming. White became so angry that he threatened the director and said he would quit if he wouldn't let her come out of the lake and warm up. Zito then complied. In another death scene, actor Peter Barton, who played the character of Doug, was hesitant to perform a scene because he had been seriously injured doing a stunt in a previous film, and had required surgery. Sensing this, White made sure that extra padding was placed behind his head for the scene where his skull was crushed against the shower wall.
Oh yeah, that's an intense scene too. He like bashes his fucking face in, and that's pretty wild too. And yeah, as we talked about in the commentary, like that whole scene of her like being out in the middle of that's crazy that they filmed that in the winter. Did not know that.
Yeah, it's a bit wild, right?
She's got erect nipples, you know. That's fucking crazy. So weird. Yeah, it's so crazy. It's weird. Amy Steele talked about Peter Barton. Barton had been doing something of a teenage heartthrob, co-starring in Friday the 13th Part 2. Heroine Amy Steele in her short-lived sitcom, The Powers of Matthew, starred TV Guide's 22nd worst TV shows of all time. By the final chapter, offer came around to Matthew Starr was off the air, and Barton wanted no part in a horror film, having hated working on Hell Night. I actually love that movie. In 1981, Amy Steele somehow talked him into it, selling him on the notoriety of starring in a final Friday the 13th film. I wonder what Amy Steele said to Barton after Paramount rushed Part 5 out less than a year later after the final chapter. My bad. Oh, and then we have our favorite boy.
So good.
Oh, honey, get a haircut, man. Oh, man. Corey Feldman is the
comes out like that.
Yeah. He is the shining star in this movie, of course. Corey Feldman, you know, the perverted little boy getting all excited about seeing the chick take her top off next door. You know, it's all these iconic scenes, and he was a great actor even back then as a young boy. He turned into some sort of weird Michael Jackson creature that is terrible at singing, but he is nostalgic in those short shorts and that iconic popped collar brown shirt with that choppy haircut. So crazy.
That's nearly scarier than Jason.
Yeah. Would you rather have Jason peep over the end of your bed or that kid?
Oh, I think Jason, to be honest with you.
Or you mean Corey Feldman?
That is horrifying.
Yeah, he's a horrifying, but like you can make a whole movie centered around that look that he's some ghost boy.
It's so weird, like
crazy.
Some behind the scenes images.
Yeah, this is an awesome film, one of my favorites. Pretty crazy, man. Pretty crazy.
But we talked about it in the commentary, but Ted White was actually the oldest stuntman or actor to ever portray Jason Voorhees. He was 58 at the time he played Jason.
Crazy.
He eventually, unfortunately, died in October 2022, and he was the longest living cast member of any Friday the 13th movie at 96 years of age.
Wow. Speaking about Tommy Jarvis and Corey Feldman, it is played for humor throughout the final chapter that young Tommy Jarvis Feldman is suddenly surrounded by horny teens running a cabin he can see through from his own house. However, the reality of the situation is that those actresses were indeed very or partially naked, and Corey Feldman was still very young enough that Eric Anderson and Kimberly Beck took him trick-or-treating the first day of filming, since it happened to be on October 31st, 1983. So the production shielded 12-year-old Feldman from most of the bad stuff, using trickery editing when necessary. What they could not control, however, was the power of low-cut tops and bras underneath. According to Feldman, in the scene in which Jodie Arison's character bends over to greet Tommy's dog, unbeknownst to anyone, but Feldman could see down her low-cut top. And of course, when he's like young boy, he would be like, well, seriously, I gotta add this, but it's like just his face is kind of like, yeah, what you would look like as a little boy. There, add that to the screen. When you're like, whoa, did I just see that? You know what I mean? And that nostalgic haircut of his, like that weird bowl cut. Man, this is one of my favorites.
So we have some more behind the scenes stuff here on screen. So this first image shows Tom Savini and an assistant working on Jason Voorhees actor Ted White's hand makeup. There was actually a decent amount of time used towards giving Jason very realistic looking hands for a killer that lived in the woods. he had some nasty looking fingernails in the film for sure, which we talked about actually in our commentary.
Yeah.
And then the second image is the actor who played Axel getting into frame with the makeup appliance of Jason. Bruce himself looks to be preparing for a head cast to be made for his brutal death scene in the hospital morgue, which are kind of interesting images. I thought those were quite cool. Also, actually, on the topic of Jason's weird hands and manky, hideous fingernails,
It's Coke nails.
the writer Barney Cohen originally had written a scene that involved Jason fondling Trisha's breasts, but the producers all vetoed it out. Director Joseph Zito also disliked the scene because he said it made Jason look too human and less menacing.
Weird.
How weird would that? Again, that would have reminded me of the remake of Hills Have Eyes, where they're like,
Oh man,
and they're all like,
touching. This whole crazy.
crazy.
Not my thing. Can you bring up? Wait, this should be. Is that? Let's see. Bring up my screen just for this. Just to shows you how fucked up Crispin Glover is here. So weird. This guy is a real character, that is for sure. Check
This
this.
movie was also actually released on a Friday the 13th.
Nice.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, my next guest had a very auspicious first visit to this program. Take a look at the videotape of a couple of weeks ago. There he is.
I'm strong. I can arm wrestle. Do you want to arm wrestle?
No.
I've been taking. No, I've been taking part. These aren't mine. I can kick.
Okay. I'm going to go check on the top 10.
Crispin Glover is a fucking weird.
Paul, check
dude.
the shoots. He may be going out again. But now you.
Just a weird thing, man. That guy is so fucking strange.
Yeah, he is. He like him and Corey in a way like seem very similar to me.
Yeah, because that weird dancing scene was improvised. That was 100% Glover, either improvised on spot or based on skills he used at the dance clubs at the time, depending on who you ask on the set. He was dancing to AC/DC's Back in Black, but they dubbed the lines "Love is Lie" over the finished film. Glover's bewildered dance partner summed up her reaction. "I'm supposed to be shy. I had a shy demeanor, kind of like a wallflower. And he's dancing so crazily, I was watching him alarmed. I think it's pretty much acted exactly how I was feeling, which I was like, what in the flip is going on here?" So weird.
Here's another weird one, actually. I forgot about this. I like copied this from the book. So Camilla Moore, in that Crystal Lake book, she originally read for the role of Samantha, who ended up being played by Judy Aronson. She said it was a fun reading, but she was very nervous about the full nudity required for the role and wasn't sure she really wanted to do it. Then suddenly the casting agent stopped her in the middle of a reading when they saw on her resume she had an identical twin sister. They said if her sister agreed to join the film, they'd cast them both. Camilla asked her sister, who was excited about it and agreed. They then learned that their new roles would involve full nudity from both of them. Camilla was hesitant about that, but Carrie, who Camilla said had always been more adventurous, said she had no problem with taking all of her clothes off, so she also agreed to do it. She admitted that if her sister hadn't been there was no way she would have been brave enough to strip naked and swim in front of a mostly male crew.
Was that the two? There was the two chicks. They were both in it, and they do that scene where Corey Feldman's like, when they they do the dive and you see their ass. That's funny. That's weird. Again, speaking of Feldman, as per series tradition, Jason was played by yet another stuntman in the final chapter. This time, Ted White, a seasoned veteran of 40 years, had doubled for John Wayne and Clark Gable. He did not like Corey Feldman calling him the meanest goddamn little kid. That's so funny. He was like, fuck that kid, man. He called Corey Feldman the meanest goddamn little kid he'd ever dealt with. When it came to the film, the most famous scene near the end when Jason reaches through the film, a broken window, to pull Tommy out of the house while he got out his frustrations. They had worked on the timing when White would grab Feldman beforehand, but during the filming, White waited a couple of beats to the point that Feldman assured that the stunt had gone wrong. So just as he let his guard down, White grabbed him exactly as you see in the film, meaning Corey Feldman's screams of horror were completely authentic. That's so funny. It's so funny that he called him like the fucking worst kid. This kid's like the meanest piece of shit kid ever. That's
You know, the way like we were talking about in the commentary, like the fact that he makes all the masks and stuff and he's into like horror movies or whatever. The original idea for Tommy was he was going to be an inventor. So they fleshed it out even more. There was like one of his projects was a device made from like a microwave, and that was what was going to be used for him to kill Jason. Some of this is seen in the final product in a scene where he helps repair a car.
Oh yeah, you see him like try to fix the car, and that's kind of interesting because I guess things change as they kind of go, right? And it's where this, but there's obviously a simple formula when it comes to these films, right? If you have sex, you die. You do drugs, you die. Whatever happens, though, if one of the characters pretending to take drugs actually takes real drugs to get in character, nothing good. At least that's what Lawrence Morrison discovered when he decided to actually smoke pot when his character Ted is supposed to be smoking pot prior to his death. And we talked about this joking on the commentary. He's like, yeah, that's funny. Even though does he even use a hammer? Corey Feldman's so nostalgic, and these are some of my favorite characters when it comes to the whole franchise. And we talked about this, how he's just the kid's laughing his ass off just watching like indie films, like stag films from like the 1920s or whatever. And yeah, Ted is supposed to be smoking pot prior to his death. Instead of helping him get into character, the pot mostly rendered Morrison incapable of concentrating on any scenes, and he became paranoid and freaked out on set. So pretty crazy. That scene where we're looking at some of the death shots, the kills, that pull through the dick is awesome. That's a pretty intense shot.
I didn't notice actually in Turkey, this film and the sequel, A New Beginning, were released at the same time. So you could watch them back to back, and the poster in Turkey had both movies on the one poster.
Oh, weird. That's kind of, there's definitely some iconic scenes in this. Let's go through some of the deaths. Connor Axel, throat slash with a hacksaw, neck broken. Nurse Robbie Morgan, disemboweled with a scalpel. That's nice. Hitchhiker, neck impaled with a knife. Samantha, stomach impaled with a knife. Paul, groin stabbed with a spear gun. That was one of my favorites. Terry, back impaled with a spear. Mrs. Jarvis, unknown. Jimmy, hand impaled with a corkscrew. Face with stuck with a cleave. That one's great. Crispin Glover, when he's like, hey, he's like calling to his friend that's just getting stoned watching that porn or whatever, and hey man, it was a corkscrew, and then it like goes directly through his hand, and then that fucking quick shot just to the face of the meat. Pretty spot on. Like it a lot. Tina thrown through a second story window. You have that picture, don't you, where she's just like tossed? Yeah, I love that shot too, where he just like full on like manhandles her and just like tosses her right out a window. Ted, head stabbed with a knife. Doug, head crushed against the wall. Pretty iconic scene. That one's like fucked up. It's pretty brutal. Sarah, chest stabbed with an axe. Chest stuck with an axe. Rob, reportedly stabbed with a garden claw. That's an interesting take. And then Jason Voorhees, repeatedly struck with a machete, even though he doesn't technically die. He does that's when Corey Feldman's famous scene where he's like, die. He's like freaking out. Iconic, gotta say.
Yeah, a bit cringy, but yeah, definitely iconic for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of things cringy about this film, but that kind of makes part of it, right? Like the whole scene where he tries to distract him somehow he sees the picture, even though we talked about this on the commentary, is like, how does he know how'd they know what Jason looked like as a little boy? Because technically there's no clear-cut idea of what he really looked like, and how would they know, especially covered in like it'd be like an artist rendition, and then Corey Feldman gets the smart idea. It's like, I'm gonna act like him so it confuses him, I guess.
here's a we get to hear again from our good friend and film critic Roger Ebert,
Yeah, our favorite.
who called this film an immoral and reprehensible piece of trash after he was forced to spend his own money to go and see it to review it.
I'm glad that guy's jaw fell off. Fuck that guy.
Yeah, he says that literally about everything.
I know. And I don't even know where you got the cred to be able to do some of that stuff, because
Yeah, no, it's weird.
he became this slack jawed, like maybe that was part of your, maybe was karma, man, from all your negativity, the things that you'd like to shit on when you weren't making anything, bro. You make a movie. People love this movie, especially part 4 is like guaranteed it's people's favorite in the franchise. So, and yeah, altogether the kills were 14. Wow, man. Whoa. When we get to part 5, there's a shit ton of kills. That's crazy. They do get way more.
Did you know this, actually? So, due to the declining interest in slasher films at the time, the final chapter was initially conceived as a prequel featuring Pamela Voorhees in a custody battle with her ex-husband for their son Jason. The first draft of the script was 160 pages long, but was ultimately deemed too dark by the producers to fit under the Friday the 13th banner. Executives and publicity team at Paramount were disappointed by this, as they said the script was incredible and had planned on releasing it during the holidays for an awards push.
What? Why didn't they redo this then? Why isn't this coming out now?
I know, right? Because I feel like people would like to see that.
Wild. Yeah, like a prequel to see. Yeah, that's interesting, man. Weird.
Yeah.
I like part 4 for what it is. I don't want to see anything different. I think it would bother me. But that as an idea, it's a great a great concept. The idea of like Freddy Krueger before he's burnt alive, right? To show him going through Springwood or whatever. And is that what it's called? Springwood? Is that what it's called? And then killing all the kids, right? So same kind of idea of finding out why these people, why this happen, right? How they become these maniacs. Yeah, I love part 4. It's one of my favorites in the whole franchise for sure. There's so many nostalgic characters, so many good kills. The mask looks awesome just because he's got like the cut through everything is pretty awesome. Even when he gets his mask taken off and he has that gnarly looking face. His face does get stranger and weirder throughout a lot of the films. Here, bring this up.
You know what was happening there as well when they were bringing in different makeup artists and stuff and like special effects guys. So what was happening there was people often ask this question about like, why the fuck does he kind of look a little bit different all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Some of it may have been intentional, but some of it was from each movie. Producers and directors and stuff didn't like the look of some of the things. So, for example, saying this one, I can't remember the guy's name who done. It was Tom Savini again, wasn't it, for this one?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So Savini came back under the premise that he was able to properly age the character and then be able to kill off the character that he created in the first one.
Oh yeah, makes sense, I guess.
But in number 3, the guy who done the effects was told to mix a look from number 2 with a look from number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like it was kind of like, I don't know, they were like told what to do, but then also kind of left in the dark about like how they actually wanted it to look.
Not gonna lie, this right here does look like it does look like Tom Savini's original, like a little boy as he's aged.
In some of them, he does look kind of like Goonie-esque.
Yeah, oh yeah. There's so many iconic scenes, like chicken getting stabbed her face. She's like, "Whoa!" And then obviously you have the weird deaf butch lesbian dyke chick that like she squeezes the banana.
When she was brought in like to audition,
yeah,
they tried to scramble, I think, there and then to not make her feel bad. They tried to scramble and get the script and like write over what it said. But she was actually, after being typecast for a role called Blubbery Girl.
Wow. Imagine like you're reading the script like, oh, wow.
Right. That's she turned around to him and she was like, yeah, I know, I've been cast as the fat girl.
Yeah, 100%.
And they were like, no, it's just like, no.
So weird. It's this mask is so iconic. So many of the things. It's like,
Oh, I just love that. That's my favorite image.
well, my favorite parts of the films is when Tommy Jarvis decides to give himself a haircut.
Yeah, best thing ever.
So good. I'm excited. I think we did this justice. You know, some are better than others. But part 4 will forever be my favorite in my heart, probably. Just part of it is because of Tommy Jarvis.
Yeah, out of those ones, that's definitely my favorite. But I'm excited to get into. I'm probably more excited to get into the second half of this deep dive, which is where I really feel like it kind of takes off and just becomes like wild and ridiculous. And even some of the stuff I don't agree with, I think it's just like fun to talk about.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, make sure you guys subscribe and follow so you can keep updated with all that stuff. And we'll see you real soon in the next one.
Wait, we need somebody takes a big shot. Wait, while we end this.
Peace.